We had fires on the coast in January. This is unusual. This is a problem.
It was really that spring rain that set us back.
One of the largest landslides in recorded history happened in saturated ground in western Washington.
Drier than normal, warmer than normal.
Lightning storms.
Wind-driven events.
They were predicting the bullseye was going to be in the Pacific Northwest.
Organized chaos.
You know, the fire was moving, 850 to 1,000 feet per minute. It doesn't take long to outdistance any kind of resources you have.
Trying to get cattle headed down country and out of the way.
Had one evening where 162,000 acres burned, 350 primary residents were lost.
On an average year, we burned 30,000 acres total. Now, these districts are seeing 100,000, 400,000 acre fires.
We don't know what's coming. We need to be prepared for all of it.
The fire siege of 2014 weighed in at over 3,600 total fires and 95 large fires, with over 1.25 million acres burned. Hundreds of homes were destroyed and thousands of lives and livelihoods were affected. At its peak, over 12,000 firefighters and support personnel were on the ground simultaneously in Washington and Oregon, collectively working nearly 5 million hours between January and October. These impressive statistics were made possible by another record, the unusually dry fall of 2013.
The 4-month period of October, November, December, and January of 2013 to 2014 turned out to be the driest on record since record keeping began in 1895.
And so in January, we started getting fires on the coast, north and south, which was pretty rare and really got people nervous.
That's unheard of for January. Following that, Mother Nature turned the moisture back on in February and early part of March of 2014. It got so wet in some places in western Washington that there was major landslides. One of the largest landslides in recorded history happened in saturated ground in western Washington near the town of Oso.
Then Mother Nature's spigot turned off again, and the Pacific Northwest fire season got going in earnest in early June, a full 3 weeks earlier than usual. It would burn well on into the fall, including a solid month at Planning Level 5, the highest measure of fire activity and preparedness.
2013 and 2014 were the two worst back-to-back seasons in our 103-year history.
So our season actually started June 6th, 2014 on the Two Bulls fire, which was a fire that was just outside of the community of Bend. That fire went about 6,000 acres, which is fairly unheard of for that early in the year. In fact, most of that happened in one operational period.
What was different this year was the kind of fire behavior we saw compared to the indices, the ERCs and things like that. We experienced some pretty extreme fire behavior. And so the season got rolling, and once it got started fast.
Because 2014's fire potential was so high, plans had been made early to deploy national fire prevention teams. Even as Two Bulls was being mopped up, the first team arrived to assess needs and help bolster local programs to try and reduce human-caused fires. Social media and traditional outreach methods were used to enlist the public's help.
My hope is that we could reach that one person who might potentially start that one fire that could burn up somebody's home, or the fire might possibly injure or kill the firefighter. If we can prevent that one fire, I've been successful.
Lightning started over 2,100 fires in 2014, nearly all of which were contained by small units of initial attack firefighters.
That's the story that the public doesn't hear. We're fighting fire every day and we're wildly successful. We suppress over 98% of all starts at the initial attack phase, and we do it safely. That's a lot of people on the ground, that's a lot of skill and training and hard work that's going on every day. That's the real business of firefighting, and most of it happens invisibly.
However, it's those 2% that they cost the most money, they generate the most attention, they are the most destructive. And we do our best to bring order to chaos when those things occur. Our folks, they run in when others run out, and they try to manage those fires to the best of their ability.
More than 21,000 lightning strikes hit Oregon and Washington on July 13th alone. The Northwest Wildfire Coordination Center and the Pacific Northwest Multi-Agency Coordinating Group hustled to provide firefighting resources for as many as 19 incident management teams simultaneously. At the same time they were fighting large fires, those teams and state, local, and private resources continued to handle more initial attacks.
You had Chewacum Complex in Washington, we had Watermelon Hill, we've had a number of fires. Our initial attack capabilities were at zero almost, because we were bouncing from fire to fire at that point, because we were bringing resources in from out of state, out of the geographic area.
The 4 lightning fires, which combined to become the Carlton Complex, were also being fought in Okanogan County, Washington, when, on July 17th, strong, sustained winds hit the region.
Most of the time the wind will blow for a few hours, and evening and it'll die, because when the sun goes down it generally dies. But it didn't.
Listen, they're evacuating the whole town.
Washington mobilized local fire department resources from across the state to help protect homes.
Been waiting for a couple hours for this to show up, protecting about 4 to 6 houses on this road. Hopefully it'll slow down and just back up to the houses and settle down. It's not looking good though.
Helped by aircraft, firefighters on the ground did protect many homes, but over 320 were lost, crops were damaged, and hundreds of cattle died.
Okanogan 911.
Yes, we can now see the fire breaking over the mountain. The flames are shooting probably a couple hundred feet in the air.
I wish that people would not call this a forest fire, because it was not. This was a true wind event wildfire. When it got out of control, the winds were running probably 40 miles an hour.
At 256,108 acres, Carlton was the largest fire in Washington's history.
It was a lightning event that came through.
We had roughly 15 to 20 new fires that day, all in one general area. And out of those 15 to 20 fires, we had somewhere around 5 or 6 that we called type 3 fires that were starting to escalate and get fairly large.
And up in this area here, the fire was moving, 850 to 1,000 feet per minute. We had a tremendous grass growth, so the fine fuel was, there, and then you had any kind of ignition source, and then put a 15 to 20 mile an hour wind behind it, and it doesn't take long to outdistance any kind of resources you have.
We had a 200,000 acre burn period.
This is a huge fire. There's a lot of territory to cover.
Once we figured out where we could safely establish that anchor point and get the plan working, we were able to take advantage of a weather break that came in and stifled fire behavior, and we consciously made a decision to extend folks on the 4th day into the night to continue working to take advantage of that weather opportunity.
It looks pretty isolated out here, but there's quite a few people out here. This is an active grazing allotment, and so you had ranchers out here trying to move their cattle and get out of the way.
One of the consequences of a large fire like that is the grazing permittees, they lose the opportunity to graze for 1 to 2 grazing seasons, and that's an economic impact to those folks. Sage grouse is a priority. That was part of our delegation.
For BLM, 100,000, 200,000, unfortunately even 400,000 acre fire that we saw this year, I think is a new norm. Not an every day or every year norm, but I think a cyclical every 3 to 5 year norm.
Deception Complex had 13 fire starts initially. We had fire crews out and suppressed all but 3 of them. We basically made a decision early on that we were not going to put firefighters down in that deep hole because of firefighter safety. I was pretty nervous. We had fire within 200 yards of our ranger district office. They were requesting to use retardant to try to slow it down and also secure a line that was directly upstream of some very high values at risk, private homes.
I could see this huge mushroom cloud above our area and said, this does not look good. That was at 5 o'clock, and by about 6 o'clock we had the crews here.
We began with the hand firing operations. The areas that we couldn't safely get in hand light, we utilized the aerial ignition devices to close the doors and some gaps in there to get the appropriate depth. Patience is key, and it's just to put enough fire on the landscape at a high point and allow that fire to back into the drainages instead of lighting something down low, letting it generate its own energy and run up.
That's going to pay long-term dividends, I think, for this community, because there'll be a barrier there for a while. The landscape really does need that fire to be an more active part to help our landscapes be more resilient. Not just because ecologically it's good, but because we want to leave future firefighters in a better situation when they go into these landscapes to manage fire.
The National Forest has been just outstanding as far as keeping us informed.
They came each day and posted printed bulletins here, and they talked to Gene and they talked to myself and other people here. So they've been here every day.
Until this happens to you, you don't really appreciate what these people from the National Forest and the whole team does, because you don't see it.
We're learning every day. And one of the things I love about this business is there's always something to learn. There's always a way to get better.
And what I learned is if you have clear leaders' intent, you bring in people that want to be part of the solution. They believe in service over agency. They believe that we're here to trusted by the public to meet their needs as best we can, listen to local landowners, private interests, agency missions. At the end, we produce an outcome that I think most people would be proud of.
We need to listen
to the people who are on the ground. The reality of the firefighter and the reality of me as an incident commander have to be as close as they can possibly be. And if we manage that and we are vigilant to that, then we're going to be the most effective that we can be, and ultimately the safest that we can be for the firefighters and the public.
We, for the last several years, have been working with our legislature to try to increase the amount of resources we had for initial response. Part of the success story there is all the fires that didn't turn into large fires, and that's a high number. And I think we would have had more large fires had it not been for those additional resources that we were able to bring to bear.
We had some really great stories come back from the Rowena fire this year, where we had crews engaged in structural protection that made a difference for the outcome of people's homes and property, and those are the kind of things that we like to hear.
The level of cooperation and coordination that's gone on between the agencies, between the dispatch centers, between the incident management teams, and all layers of the organizations and the agencies, it just has been, it's been fantastic. It's been beautiful to watch. I've been proud to be a part of it. And, you know, for the folks that make that happen, it's to their credit.
For me, the big success of the 2014 fire season is partnerships and relationships. There's been many times at a fire briefing and I'm looking at all of the names on the backs of these t-shirts and sweatshirts, and there's people from all over the nation and all over the Pacific Northwest, and they're all there for one reason, and that's to help that community that needed the help. And that wouldn't have been possible without all of the work from all of those agencies, not just our agency or PNWCG, but really the work of all of those hundreds of agencies. And that really what we care about is the people of the Northwest.
In the end, really, it doesn't matter what patch you're wearing or what your door, what's decal on your door of your engine or your apparatus says. You know, the community within the state expects, you know, people to come together and to bring things back to normal.
Well, I think the last thing, it's really important to say thank you. And we couldn't do what we do alone, whether it's those landowner partners, other agencies, the military, the local organizations, the policymakers. It really takes a sustained effort and a lot of resources to do fire protection. And it's important that we acknowledge the role of all those folks and thank them for helping us do this.